Re-
Hello, hello. Welcome to another weekly group Q&A call with me. And today I'm here to answer any of the questions that you might have. Hop on and comment in the chat. Put your questions in the chat and I will answer in the end of this presentation. Today is very simple. Today, we're going to talk about something that a lot of you have dealt with in the past and sometimes will still deal with it in the program, although we do things in a way to avoid plateau. Plateau simply means that your body is not making any progress in any area whatsoever for a period of time. So that's the first thing to understand before we talk about the 7 reasons why your fat loss has plateaued. Okay, the first thing is to understand what exactly a plateau means. A plateau does not mean that your body weight remained the same for the past 3 days. Just because the scale hasn't moved in 3 days, or just because the scale hasn't dropped in 3 days, that is not a plateau. Plateau isn't your body weight not changing for a couple of weeks either. So let's understand what it is. I will consider a plateau only when your body weight, well, if you are in a fat loss phase, all right? So let's just keep this in mind. The context of this conversation here is about fat loss, not maintenance, not lean building, not priming phase, not reverse dieting. We're talking specifically about fat loss. So this only applies to you if you're going through a fat loss phase, all right? And if you're going through a fat loss phase, what happens is your body will adapt over time. Our bodies are extremely adaptable. Our metabolism is extremely adaptable. So in the beginning, we will start noticing fat loss because we will start eating less than we burn. And then over time, your body will do everything it can to match that energy in, to match what we're giving it to it. So what it will do is to try to keep things as they are. So naturally, physiologically, our bodies don't want us to lose body fat. It just doesn't. So it will slow down some processes to match the energy that's coming in. That's the popular term for slowing down your metabolism, because that way, even if you're eating less, which you probably will be, you're eating less than you were eating before, but your body's so smart that it adapted to keep you alive and doing the things that you normally do with the same, with less energy. It learned to conserve energy. And when that happens, your body weight will not change. When that happens, we need to do something, right? However, until we get to that point, let's just be very clear here. We're talking about staying consistent on a deficit to see fat loss. Okay, so if you are following your macros, following your meal plan perfectly during the week, and then here comes the weekend and you self-sabotage and you overeat by 5,000 calories, then you're not in as much as you want to believe that you are in a fat loss phase and following your diet, you're not. That's the reality. That's the reality of it. Okay. But again, back to what exactly it means to hit a plateau. Plateau is normal. It's just your body adapting to what you're doing to it. That's what it is. Okay. It's not bad. And it's pretty much unavoidable to hit a plateau at some point. All right. Because your body will adapt and we need to keep doing things to get out of this plateau. So I will consider a plateau if there's no changes, absolutely no changes on your body weight. Hear me out. On your body weight, your measurements, your pictures over the course of at least 4 weeks. Body weight, measurements, pictures, 4 weeks. I want to make this very, very clear. So for at least 4 weeks or 4 check-ins in a row, if there's absolutely no changes on your body weight, on your measurement, on your pictures, then you might have hit a plateau. Other than that, it's just in your head. Other than that, it's one of the 7 things that I will discuss here that sounds like a plateau, but it's not actually a plateau. It's maybe you self-sabotaging. It's maybe, life happening. But just keep that in mind. You did not hit a plateau because your body weight didn't change for 2 weeks. You did not hit a plateau because your waist measurement didn't decrease for 2 weeks. We're looking at a 4-week block at least, always at a 4-week block at least, to see if nothing, absolutely nothing is changing. If your body weight is not changing for 4 weeks, but your waist is shrinking, perfect. Awesome. That's all we want, right? If your body weight is not changing, your waist is staying the same, but your pictures look sick, that's all we want. Because sometimes the physical changes on our body will not reflect on the measurements or on the scale, but they will reflect on the outside visually. Okay. And I saw some of you in person and I was really like, because you looked so good and the pictures couldn't reflect that. So changes might be happening, but you're just not aware of that. Now, okay. Now, what are some of the reasons why you may hit a plateau, or instead of hitting a plateau, you actually stop making progress in your fat loss journey? Before I start, again, just one last thing. Fat loss should be short and to the point. It's not only my opinion, okay, but there's actually science behind it and a psychological effect to it as well. I don't want anybody to be dieting or intentionally trying to lose weight for a year. That's not healthy. That's not how you do it. And you're not going to get there by trying harder and continue to diet forever. That's not how you do it. If you need a break, you need a break. We do a diet break. We do an intentional diet break, an intentional refeed day, or whatever you need. But we don't diet for a year. That's delusional. Okay, so we need to learn from the bodybuilders. The bodybuilders do a very long off season where they build, meaning that they're training super hard, they're eating more, and they might not be looking as lean and shredded, but then they do the competition prep, which is a very short window of time, like maybe 4 months, 3 months. It depends on how much body fat they need to lose and how shredded they need to look on stage. But let's say 3 months, let's say 4 months. That's it. You start, you suck it up for 4 months, you diet down, you get out of it, you go live your life. So the more focused you are, the more you flip the switch to, okay, this is just a short period of time. Let me just hammer this. Forget about any distractions, forget about anything else. Let's just do it. And then once you get out of it, then you can incorporate the flexibility. Then you can learn how to implement the flexibility and be a little more loose, I want to say, with your food, with your lifestyle, because then you're going to be reverse dieting. Then you're going to be transitioning into a maintenance phase, maintaining the fat loss. But while you're on fat loss, obviously you don't have to suffer. Obviously, you don't have to be miserable. but fat loss in and of itself is not fun. Okay, so sometimes you just have to suck it up, put the blinders on, do it, and get out of it. Okay, the sooner, the more consistent you are, and the more to the point you are with things, the sooner you finish the fat loss and you'll be done. All right, and then off you go to a more enjoyable, flexible phase. Does that make sense? All right, so 7 reasons why your fat loss might have plateaued. The number one reason is lack of tracking consistently. That's the number one reason that I see many of you hitting a plateau, and it's not a true plateau, but it's more of a mental plateau. And you're just not making progress because calories are just not in check. You're not tracking. Okay, you're not consistently tracking, and you're not tracking every single little thing that you're eating. Okay, so you may track very well during the week, but then on the weekends you forget to track. You don't want to track. You don't know how to track. You forget about it, right? Or you might be do really well with the main things, like the main food items, but then you forget the sauces, you forget the oils, you forget nut butters, you start licking like the BLTs, bites, leaks, and tastes. It starts to become more of a thing in your life, and then you don't track that. And it just becomes like, it adds up over time, and it takes you out of that calorie deficit needed for fat loss. That's basically what it is. So everything that has calories needs to be tracked. And I'll go even further. The more you plan ahead, the easier it'll be for you. Just because you can't track, just because you can incorporate foods that you love and have that flexibility, doesn't mean that will always work out in your favor. So you need structure to be able to be flexible. Okay. Flexibility doesn't mean winging it. Flexibility does not mean winging it. So I see a lot of you still not pre-logging your food on MyFitnessPal and wondering what's happening, because nothing is happening, right? The changes are not there. The progress is not there, but it's lacking that consistency factor on that very, very important piece of the puzzle, which is being really on point with your calories. Okay, so plan ahead, take your time, 30 minutes on a Sunday, 30 minutes on a Saturday, whatever day works best for you to plan out your meals. Plug those into MyFitnessPal, include the things that you like. Leave some room in the evenings. For example, most of you struggle with this, right? You'll get home and you're super starving, or you're craving a lot of things and you end up going overboard. Save up those calories then. So during the day, focus on protein, veggies, and then at night you have a little bit more room for carbs and fats, but do that in a planned way. Plan out your meals for the week, plug those into MyFitnessPal, create your own meal plans, and stick to that. Then if something happens that you need to change that, it's easier to adapt and to pivot and to change things as they go. But if you're every day you wake up and you have no clue if you're going to hit your macros or not, if you're going to what you're going to eat or how much you're going to eat, and you're never sure, that's not how you do it. Then you might be better off just following a meal plan for a while so you can achieve your goals, instead of using MyFitnessPal and spinning your wheels and not achieving the results. And like, let's just forget about that piece of the puzzle for a little while, because that's not being helpful. Remember that macros is just a tool. It's a fantastic tool, but if you're not using the tool correctly, it can go on the other way, right? On the other direction. So that would be the first thing. Like, don't use MyFitnessPal as a tracker, use it as a meal planner. Okay. And I know that you have 30 minutes on a Sunday to do that. know that, and every night to do that for the day after. So it's just a matter of, opening up the app and planning out the meals that you're going to eat. You're going to eat it anyway. So just do it in a way that you enjoy. Add your snacks, your yummy foods if you want to, but make sure that you're hitting your protein, make sure that you're hitting your fiber, make sure that you're hitting your calories, and stick to it, right? And the more simple you can make the plan, the better. Simplicity scales. This is a term that we use in business, simplicity scales. And the more you overcomplicate, adding complicated recipes and complicated ingredients and 1,000 items on your breakfast foods and so on and so forth, like that's going to get hard for you to stay consistent when things got crazy. You have to think about, okay, if things got crazy, I can still go downstairs, open up my fridge and hit my protein because I know that I have ground turkey. I know that I have chicken. I know that I have beef. I know that I have Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, everything. I know that I have a fridge packed of protein and carbs and veggies and all of that. They're prepared, ready for me. So it's much easier that way. All right. Number two, out of the 7 reasons why your fat loss has plateaued is incorrectly calculating your initial deficit. So many of you had started with me on macros and many of you have not. Some of you may have started with just trying to follow what MyFitnessPal gave to you in terms of calories. And that's so wrong. And you shouldn't go by that. Okay. So sometimes you will hit a wall because the calories that you're trying to follow are just not aligned with what's realistic, achievable, and in alignment with what you really need to lose weight. Because like social media is very fun right now. There's a lot of, influencers just preaching more flexibility and that you should be eating more and that like you should be eating a certain amount of calories. And I will never say anything like that because everybody is different. So for some of you who are maybe 4'11", 100 pounds, yeah, if you want to lose weight, you might have to eat less than 1,200 calories. And that's not like, that's just because you're tiny, right? Or if you're in a more aggressive fat loss phase, it might mean that you're going to need very few calories. Or if you're getting started on weightlifting now and you don't have a ton of muscle mass, your metabolism is likely not that high. So don't compare yourself to influencers or women that you see online preaching that flexibility aspect, preaching that you should be eating more, preaching that, because each one of us has a different metabolism. Each one of us has a different history. So it's never going to be the same. And calculators, online calculators are just online calculators. They don't know anything about you. And they're very like, they're not always on point with the suggestions. Okay. Now another reason, the third reason for a quote unquote plateauing fat loss, or why you're not seeing that much fat loss, it might mean that you're just eating a little bit more carbs. Okay. A lot of you come from a background of eating very, very little carbs and being scared of carbs. I was this person 5 years ago. And it happened to me too. Like I gained weight as soon as I started reintroducing carbs, and I did not do it in the right way that I do with you guys. So that's another a topic for another conversation. But carbs, just so you know, carbs in the body, they turn into glucose. Okay, that's the end product of carbohydrates. So when we eat carbohydrates, the body does its magic and it turns into glucose. And for each 1 molecule of glucose, for each gram of carbohydrate, the body carries with it. So it will attach to that molecule. it will carry together another 3 grams of water. 1 gram of carb, 3 grams of water in your muscle cells, in your muscles, in your body. So if you are eating more carbs, you will weigh more, not because you're gaining fat. That's not fat. That's just water coming, that's pulled from with the carbohydrates, okay? Which is not a bad thing at all. But just so you can understand, don't just go by the scale, because if you are coming from a period where you did low carb and you're barely eating and you start reintroducing more carbs, it will likely reflect on a heavier weight on the scale. But don't freak out. That's not fat. That's just water, okay? The fourth reason that I see people doing all the time, and this is very easy to do, especially when you get your very first results and you get super excited that you're seeing results, you start getting slacky. Yeah. In the beginning, you weigh everything, you measure everything perfectly in grams, you use your food scale, and then you log it into MyFitnessPal perfectly. Then you start seeing results. Or you have a meal plan, because those of you who are starting with me, who have started with me recently, you know that we're doing an initial meal plan for the first month to really create that structure and eliminate the guesswork and playing around with numbers. So you follow your meal plan to a T, you measure everything, you weigh everything. And then after a while, you start to not use that anymore. You don't use the scale, you kind of eyeball things, and you start eyeballing a lot of things. And then you start adding more licks and bites and tastes. And then, ta-da, you get out of the calorie deficit, right? And your body weight is not going to change. So weigh all your food. We need accuracy all the time. I don't eyeball my food. I only eyeball my food if I'm at a restaurant, or in the case where I went for my vacation and I didn't even logged it. But if I'm using MyFitnessPal, if I'm logging, I think I'm OCD, because like I can't log it without weighing it. And because it's just more accurate. Of course, over time you get really good at it, right? Over time, the more you do it, the better you get at eyeballing and like estimating how much is it, how much of each food there's there. And even like I make challenges with myself. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna weigh this banana. I bet it's 100 grams, and sometimes it's 100 grams to the T. Oh, it's amazing. But I still weigh my food. And I can pretty much estimate a full macro breakdown just by looking at a meal. But I still do, because it doesn't take me any more time when I'm prepping my food. It doesn't. I just put it in my plate and weigh it. Like I was going to put food in my plate anyway. So why not just put the plate on the scale? And I don't have to calculate anything because I've already done it. I've already plugged in the foods in here, right? The night before. So you literally just have to weigh your food. So if you've become a little bit comfortable, or maybe too comfortable, and you stopped weighing your food precisely, maybe that's the reason why you stopped seeing results. Now, another reason is, hold on, let me grab some water. The fifth reason here is reduction in movement. And sometimes that's not voluntary. Sometimes you're just not hitting your steps. Sometimes you get sick. Sometimes you, for some reason, can't get all the workouts in. And your calories are calculated based on your activity levels, right? And when you don't match the activity level, when you reduce the activity level, of course, the difference between what you eat and what you burn is going to be affected. So sometimes there's nothing wrong with your calories. Sometimes you're doing everything that you need to do, but you just reduced your movement for some reason. Okay, so One of the ways that we measure movement throughout the day is tracking steps plus the strength training. The sixth reason why you might have not been able to lose weight, or your weight loss has stopped, or your fat loss has stopped, or you seem to have hit a plateau. Sometimes it's just your hormones and your period and the time of the month. That's just how it is. Like our weight fluctuates a lot around our periods, a lot. So don't beat yourself up too much if you're around that period. But also like, don't use the period to like the PMS and like those weeks before your period, during your period, to kind of like justify going overboard, because then you're self-sabotaging basically, right? Like we all go through the periods, we all go through that period of the month, or most of us do. And it's not the most fun part of being a woman, but it is here, and we deal with it. Like we can't blame our PMS, we can't blame the time of the month for everything, for our own lack of doing what we need to do. If you know that you get hungrier and that you get more cravings around your period, what you can do is to plan ahead for that. Just plan ahead for that week. Okay. And then number 7, and lastly, patience is key. All right. A week, like I said in the beginning, a week of no scale progress is not a plateau. Okay. It's normal. If you're on a fat loss phase, the scale will not go down every week. If you are on the thinner side, if you don't have a lot of body weight to lose, then the scale will not go down linearly at all. At all. You might lose a few pounds over time, but that's very different than someone who has 20 pounds, 30 pounds, 40 pounds, 50 pounds to lose, that like clearly the scale has to reflect fat loss, right? And that's something just on a parenthesis here, just like people are always preaching, and this is something that I say too, that the scale doesn't matter. What I say is the scale is not all that matters, okay? But if you are in that position where you have 20, 25, 30, 40, 50 pounds to lose, and you know that because you're overweight, your body fat levels are so high, then the scale needs to reflect that. Then the scale is going to be a tool to measure how much progress you're making, right? It's not going to be the same thing as for a skinny fat girl who only has like a little bit of stubborn belly fat and is primarily otherwise lean, quote unquote, or thin, right? It's not going to work the same way. For this girl, she might not even need to step on the scale because that would mess up with her head anyways. Like with me, I've gained 20 pounds to be where I am right now. To look lean, I needed to gain muscle. And I was not very, very thin. I was more on the skinny fat, but I was always athletic. I always had like wide shoulders and stuff like that. But I wasn't defined. I wasn't toned like I am right now. I needed to put on muscle, and that muscle reflected on the scale. Had I let that affect the way I showed up for myself, then probably that would have, I would have gave up. Probably, I don't know. But I just, for a long time, I just didn't care. I chose to not care what the scale was saying, because I was looking myself in the mirror and I loved what I was seeing, and I loved getting stronger in the gym, and that was important to me, and I loved the feeling, and I kept on going, right? But for someone who maybe are, I don't know, 5'6" and 180 pounds, 190 pounds, you do need to lose weight. You need to lose fat, and you need to lose weight. Like it needs to reflect on the scale. So we can't just always say that the scale doesn't mean anything. I like to say that the scale is not all that matters, because there are other markers for sure, but we can't just completely disregard the scale and be happy about staying in the same super high body fat levels for very long periods of time. Okay, because that's neglecting the reality. Now, like I said, the seventh reason why your fat loss might have plateaued, or you feel like you plateaued, is just the lack of patience, right? It's just the lack of patience. So stick to the process. Always, always, always focus on the process. So every time I ask you, what do you need to focus on the next week? I don't want you to tell me, oh, I want to lose 1 pound next week. I want to lean out a bit next week. That's not a goal. I mean, it is, but it is not, because what can you do about it, right? You have to, how can you measure that? How can you guarantee that you're getting closer to that goal? And the only way to do that is to actually turn the process into your goal. So, okay, my goal next week is to increase my water intake. My goal next week is to increase my step count. My goal next week is to meal prep. So I'm for sure hitting all of my meals every single day, right? So make the process your goal. Always focus on the process. Stay consistent with the process, and the results will be just a consequence of that. And then if it is a true plateau, then we will do something about it. And I will have all the tools available to help you with that. But it has to be a true plateau. And you got to be doing your part in terms of being consistent with your tracking, with your planning, pre-logging, steps, training, and everything like that. And the more you plan ahead, the more you do all those things ahead of time, the easier it becomes, really. Because you're going to get like in the habit of doing things almost automatically, and it's less of a burden that way. But yeah, thank you so much for today. And if you have any questions after this, just send me in the WhatsApp group or in the messenger in my app. Have yourself a fantastic end of the week.